What's up, everybody? Rabbit Hedgehog here at Indian of Oklahoma City, and we are going to take one other 2025 Indian Scout out. This is going to be the Indian Scout Bobber Base 2025 model. So it's got the new Speed Plus engine in it, the 1250 engine. This one does have the 2-inch suspension, does have the traditional fork at 4.7 inches of travel on the front. But this is going to be the base. No power modes, no keyless entry, analog everything, no cruise control. Just a simple, bare bone motorcycle. So it doesn't have the USB port in the front, but it does have all LED lighting. It does have the analog brake system. So it does have all of that in it. We do have the keyed ignition, just like the original Scout, left-hand side key there. And we're going to hop up on it and see what it looks like with base, because it doesn't have all the extra, controls here. It has a placeholder for the button where the cruise control would go, but it's not there. It has simply the brights, flash to pass, turn signals, horn, and then your screen will go through on that little LCD on the analog there, and also the starter button. We'll cut the key on there, and we'll go from here. So we have over here on that left side, we're going to change that LCD screen. We're going to go to trip 1, trip 2, tachometer, voltage, ambient air temperature, current average MPG, range, and back to odometer with your gear indication here. There is a side stand warning indicator on here. If I go ahead and power it, it should give me that here in a moment. I noticed that earlier. Maybe it's when it started. There it is, side stand. So you can see that it does have the side stand indicator on here. It does have a warning label on there until you kick it off, and then it will go away. You have coolant, engine temperature, or engine service light, left and right, traction control if it was equipped. It is not on this one. And the brights and chassis fall indicator on the regular good old-fashioned analog there. You still get the same console and everything. Everything else is the same. We're back to the low-slung mirrors that the bobbers are normally known for. I'll go ahead and start adjusting those to where I need them real quick. And we should be good to go. Before I start this ride here real quick, I want to thank my sponsors, AGVSportUSA, for providing the gear that keeps Rabbit Hedgehog and his team safe. I want to thank Doug Crawford and USA Synthetics Amsoil for protecting the engines of our motorcycles. And also want to thank Law Tigers of Oklahoma for being out there right now, being part of the community, raising awareness of riders and all that to the general public, but also helping us in the courtroom in the event of an accident. So at any rate, let's take out the Scout Bobber 2025 model. Again, preload adjustable only on front and rear suspension. 2-inch suspension travel is what this one will come with. So it does not have the better suspension that the others do. Take a little bit different route this time due to the traffic pattern for the afternoon. This takes me over a little bit more rougher suspension traveling bits too. Oh, that's a good punch on the rear end. Oh, man. Use the roughest railroad crossing you can find to test the suspension. That's one way to do it. Definitely bottom out there really fast. Pretty good solid punch there. One thing about the Scout Bobbers, it's always been kind of the base of the Scout line, the more bare bones brawler, and it definitely has the attitude of that style of motorcycle. Sitting on it, the seat is very close to the front of the motorcycle, so it pushes you a little bit forward as well, so that way you have to reach these low bars. So in terms of the seating position, feet come straight down from the knee, and then the leg straight back to the hip. The hip, you go between almost the to be honest, the shoulder is about halfway between the knee and the hip there, and you're crunched on here pretty good, leaning forward. Elbows are down slightly, and arms are out to the bar from there. So overall, a kind of clamshell position. And just like the other bobber before, never really a fan of that original seat and some of the things about the original bobber, but we will see how the 2025 shapes out. The others are definitely more, how do you say, refined compared to their older counterparts. Let's see if this one rides the same. I will say the engine feels very similar to the original 1133cc version of the Scout engine. It does not have, of course, the ride modes this time. It has strictly just what would be standard mode on it. So it definitely feels just like the original one in throttle response. I feel like the positioning is very similar. The fueling is very similar. I think it actually works a little better than the standard mode. It feels like the fueling and the response is more closer to 1-to-1. Just a little bit of play in it and nothing further. Dips into turns real nicely and smoothly. Powers down really nicely. So a good overall feeling chassis again. Again, the clamshell position may not be the most comfortable for all riders, but overall it's not a bad position. It takes a moment to get used to. Balancing the chassis again, fantastic. That is something I've noted on the other Scouts that I have been on. This is the 4th edition of the Scout that I've been on. I've been on the 101, the Classic, the Sport Scout, and now the Scout Bobber. This is the only base model one I have taken out. All the others have been limited plus tech. So therefore they are more upscale than this one. So that is to note that this is the only base one I have taken out. So it does not have ride command, it does not have power modes, does not have cruise control. It's the most bare bones of all of the motorcycles, and it starts around $13,000. So it is also the cheapest of the lineup as well. Of course, coming standard now with ABS and LED lighting as well. I will say this motorcycle does handle accelerating onto the interstate beautifully, and it handles getting by traffic as well and getting away from a situation like that. It does very good. It's very narrow, so if you're in one of those states that allows lane splitting and other methods of evasion, it will cut through traffic really nicely, and it's super balanced as well, so it'll allow you to do that at a nice slow pace as well if you need to, and balance around the vehicles. Very easy to index. You do feel like you're sitting kind of on top of the motorcycle again, kind of like the Scout Classic, unlike the Sport and the 101 that feel like you're sitting more inside the motorcycle. So I do feel more planted atop the motorcycle. This seat is not as cupping or as scalloped as the Scout Classic seat, so it does have a little bit flatter plane to it. So you do sit a little more down, I feel like, than you do the classic Scout, and the seat holds you just right in the right position. Whereas the original Scout bobber seat was very flat profiled and kind of uncomfortable after an unreasonably small distance, I'll put it that way. I was never a fan of that seat, and I made that a point in every video I ever did about it. I was never a fan of it. That's why I like the 20 seat better, because it was a flat, taller seat that actually, even though it was as hard as a rock, you had more surface area to spread your weight out over, and it felt better. And to be real, this one is at larger surface area. Once again, it's not as thin, so it seats better than the original Scout Bobber's seat for sure. Again, I feel like the chassis is more responsive. I feel like the motorcycle is more planted. This bobber, of course, has fatter wheels and tires than the other Scouts in its class, but it definitely tracks really well once again, and the front end is very planted once again, and there's not as much chatter in the front fork, therefore making a more confident ride and a more refined ride. So I will say again, we have increased in refinement and have definitely gone up in terms of rideability of the Scout Bobber. I believe it is far more comfortable than it was and rides better. I will say that in terms of the suspension travel, the 2 inches in the back, you can feel it. Going over that railroad track was a solid reminder, and going over this broken road, you will probably actually now hear chop in my voice, and that is because this suspension is working more so than the other sets were. They have a full extra inch of travel to bottom out than this one does, and this one definitely is showing that it is more maxed out. Recall that I am 209 pounds or so and 6 foot tall, so I am putting more strain on this suspension than probably its preload set, but it will still be a very, very tough suspension even if preload is set accordingly, because you can definitely feel that it's a little bit more chatty than, actually it's a lot more chatty. I could definitely feel some road vibration more so than I have before. The one thing though about the bobber is it is designed as a commuter style motorcycle. It is definitely for round town applications and everything. Though you can get this one with cruise control and everything if you go to limited and limited plus tech trim. This one feels more at home being bare bones in a sense, because I don't believe that you're going to take it on medium or long range trips like you can the others. The other suspension is so much better and feels really nice. It feels comparable to even the Chief on those, where the suspension is pretty good overall, with just a little refinement required here and there, possibly, you know, and that would be through preload or something that would make that better. This one, you're definitely going to feel it a whole lot more, because I feel this road a whole lot more, and this is the smoother of the two roads that I have been taking on this path so far. So if we're already this bumpy, we'll see what happens in the cityscape, but we've already hit some bumps. It's already felt like a 2-inch suspension travel, so it's already there. In terms of the mirror placement, I'd have to work on these a little bit more. I think they are in a more storage configuration because they came off of that truck, and I think they're still in that configuration so as to not bonk the tank or anything like that when in storage. And I believe there is actually a bonk on this left-hand side already from the mirror in storage, so I think they moved them. So I've got good visibility out of the left one here. The right one I'd have to work on a little bit more, and that way I can see a little bit better. But I usually do not mind the downswing mirrors. Like this one's perfect. I can see the left lane plus the lane behind me. I can see the Challenger, Dodge Challenger, sitting there behind me perfectly, so I know he's there. In this mirror, I can see Chevrolet Blazer coming up, but he's in the other lane because it's pointing a little bit off of kilter. But other than that, it's good. Always check your blind spots anyway. That's why we use our eyes and our head in the event that we can't see fully our blind spot. We are at 60 miles an hour in 6th gear right now, 2,900 steady RPM per the tachometer here. So we are not taxing this engine whatsoever. We are slowing down to 55 miles an hour here. Of course, a little less because he didn't want to get on at all. Oh, yes, just speed up. It's 55, bro. Anyway, we're at 5th gear now, 3,000 RPM. So these gearings are more toward that economy cruising style to help drive down that vibration through the bars. Again, the engine braking on this motorcycle is fantastic. And even though we have that single front disc, the bite is very good and easy to modulate and know where to pinpoint your stop at. This one, of course, does have the magnesium wheels on it versus the Scout Classic with the wire wheels. I still feel like this engine is very, very familiar feeling. I feel like it does have a feel of the old Scout engine in it now without all the extra power modes, and I feel like that's how they tuned it. It was a familiar friend, but it does have a lower growl to it, so it is interesting to hear this engine over the old Scout engine, and it's kind of messing with me since they feel so similar right now. This one also, I feel like it's just happy at 4th gear. The other Scout engine will do this in 5th a lot better at city speeds, 40 to 45, where this one likes this at 4th gear on all the range that I've been riding so far. We're running at 2,600 RPM. We're in a happy butter zone. Give her some beans, and I mean, she'll still rock it right off. So she's riding a good power band where she's at, and she's still got more power band to go. I definitely feel like the suspension is definitely more refined than the old 2-inch Scout. I said that before when I accidentally thought the Sport Scout had 2-inch suspension. It actually had 3, but I do feel that the 2-inch suspension has improved. I don't feel as beat up, but I definitely know that it is not up to the other's ability. But I'm glad the front end is paired well. It doesn't chat. The back end has chat though. And it's definitely bucking me a little bit out of the saddle on some of these bumps, whereas the others did not. But I will say at least this seat is a whole lot better than the old one. I'm kind of intentionally going over some of these harsher bumps to find out what it feels like on that suspension, and I definitely am feeling quite a bit more chat from the rear. Like I said, front very planted, rear very chatty. I could take some of that out from preload, but I do not think it will take all of it out. Again, I like this brake pedal versus the original brake peg, because it definitely is a more sure-footed feeling when you're on it. You know exactly what you're doing, and I feel like you modulate better because it doesn't have any rubber on it, so you feel directly what's going on. So that's really, really nice. So sitting here at this stoplight, we've had a few minutes of riding, and I've got wind. Looks like we're now kicking out of the south instead of the east. Maybe some southeast wind, and I definitely am feeling that heat start to crawl into that seat pan on this one. And I know we're getting these engine temperatures up pretty good. The last one we got to 194, 96, probably into the 200s. Never set the fan off. We're about 81 degree air temperature, so we've been moving around in traffic just enough to keep those fans from going off, but I could definitely feel some heat starting to get back into the seat pan. But again, I don't feel it on my legs. I don't feel it on my thighs or anything like that. It's all pretty much all contained into that one spot. And as noted before, it feels like that's wind driven. So as soon as I get a different wind flow, it will probably kick it away from there and it will be fine. But it's not anything awful. I still believe the original Scouts and Scout Bobbers were much hotter than these versions. And I will stand by that because these definitely do not feel like they have that heat, where it would be crawling up the leg and the back of the thigh and everything. These are just only affecting one small area. The engine braking again on this one is really nice. The clutch feel on this one is also pretty good. It's been kind of hit and miss so far on these early production Scouts that I've ridden. The Sport Scout had kind of an awkward one. The 101 was perfect. This one's very close to where the 101 was. Right around 3.5, and you have a travel section where you know where it's at, whereas the Classic Scout had kind of that end of the lever feel again. So I think it's just really going to be some fine tuning on that to find the happy spot. But I think this is the happiest spot clutch so far, along with the 101. They both feel very similar, and both of them are very easy to modulate and easy to fill out. Again, feeling like I'm on top of the motorcycle. I've got good hip control where I can put my hip into it. I'm not even using arms right now. If I put my arms into it and my hips at the same time, this motorcycle definitely is very flickable and very much well able to dive into some corners. But note, we do have some low ground clearance on this machine, and it will scrape probably fairly quickly. Oof. Yeah, the bumps. Definitely the bumps. As I'm getting closer to 40, I am definitely feeling like, oh, there we go. Good stopping power. Good brakes. But I'm definitely feeling like I need better suspension and something a little bit more comfortable and not cool. The Scout Bobber is that cool, but not quite comfortable. I know I've got this big bump right here. Oh yeah, that kicks you off. Scrape at 20. So pretty much I'm scraping my heel right now through that whole turn between 40 and 50, so not quite as good of lean angle as the other Scouts. Of course, we are a little bit lower to the ground than the other Scouts that we have ridden so far. The other 3 are definitely taller than this one with 3-inch travel. We have changed our tires, we have changed our wheel here, so we have wider track on our tires. The bike is still communicating, it's still nimble. Let me see if it gets stuck in these rain grooves and wants to stick with them. Actually, this one does. As you'll see, I'm tracking ever so slightly away because I'm being carried a little bit by the rain groove, and that's probably the tread pattern of this particular tire. We do also still have that pretty wicked wind right now, and I believe right now it's actually coming straight at me. And we're still tracking really well. It's not a motorcycle that's very hard to contain. Oh, actually, by that flag, it still shows a crosswind, so we might be getting blown by crosswind along with a little bit of that tracking of that rain groove. So I'm getting kind of a little bit of both. I do feel the movement within the bar and everything, that it is tracking through a rain groove, so I do feel that in this one, especially that groove right there. I couldn't even leave it. I was trying to push out and it just wouldn't do it. So I like the Metzler tires that the other ones are coming with. They definitely track really, really well through all the rain grooves. These tires here are definitely more of that classic pattern, and they do kind of follow the road track a little bit differently. It's not anything awful. It's just I like to point that out because I know some people ask how that handles rain grooves and stuff, and I kind of want to know myself, to be honest, because, you know, as long as you're on regular tarmac and pavement or asphalt, it doesn't do anything weird. But if you're on if you're on concrete, then it can do that weird tracking every once in a while. So we are at around 75 or so miles an hour. We're pushing about 3,600, 3,650 RPM, 3,550 in some cases. She's pretty easy to handle in terms of keeping her speed. With the wind where it's at now, I don't feel that heat in the seat pan anymore. So again, I believe that is wind related, where that heat starts to rise up. Oh, I will say though that this road is definitely banging me up a whole lot more on this one. I will say I definitely do prefer the Sport Scout, the 101 Scout, and also the Scout Classic with their longer suspension travels, their seating positions, and everything that goes with those. This one here is a very short range motorcycle. To me, I would use this as a commuter and just to bomb around town. That's what this would be perfect for. It's got enough power, it's nimble, it's lightweight, and it's narrow, so it can get through traffic and bust in and out. But you can hear, oh my goodness, the suspension, even if I worked some of that out, would still be pretty dang choppy. And over a long period ride, it would for sure wear you thin. So in terms of the Scout line, when it comes to these new 2025s, the bobber is definitely the coolest looking. That low slung, chopped up look looks great. Rides all right. But definitely would not be for any long range excursions or anything. Even though I do like this seat a ton better, I'm noticing my rear end is starting to already fall asleep because it is fairly firm. But still, I do not believe it is as bad as the old bobber seat that was much more narrow, and I don't know what it was padded with, but not a fan still. Is this definitely an improvement over the Scout Bobber? It absolutely is. It rides overall better. It's very flickable. Out of all of them, though, it is for sure the laziest right now, because it does have a little bit more tire to overcome from left to right, so not as thin of tires, and you can feel that in its steering. It's a little bit slower. It still kicks over nicely, but you can tell when you're pushing on it that the transition isn't as fast or as crisp. So overall, when it comes down to the Scout Bobber, if you're going to use it for around town, if you're going to use it to jump from place to place, and work to home, to work to friends, work to just around town, you're going to love it. It's great on power. It's good on everything that you need it to be good at. But yeah, I can already tell you, I definitely want to get back to base and hop off. It's not a cramping sensation or anything like that, which is good news. It is literally just my bum is falling asleep, and my spine is getting rocked by the smaller suspension travel. It definitely presents itself very plainly. So at any rate, when it comes to the Indian Scout Bobber for 2025, it is the entry level. This is the base of the bases, and the suspension travel and everything. Yeah, it definitely. I wish they would just go ahead and make them all 3 inches. I don't think there's a reason for the 2-inch one. They need to just keep it one single suspension set, maybe with the higher end suspension that would come with the 101 or something of that nature. But yeah, there's just no need for the 2-inch travel, except for look, we're already on the. Oh my gosh, we're on the ground pretty good there. Very good there. I'm trying to get her back, but like at 38, 39, 37, she is on the ground very quickly in that turn. The other ones could manage that a little better. So yeah, again, I chalk that up to being lower. I chalk that up to the suspension not being as refined. And at least it holds its line really well. But I would say jump up to a Sport Scout, jump up to a Scout Classic, unless you're using this one for around town bombing. This would be the best one to do it, because it's fun, it's great looking, but it's just not the best at riding very long range. So at any rate, this is the Rabbit Hedgehog riding on the 2025 Indian Scout Bobber base. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and also I will post in the description below all the specifications and everything, as I always do. Of course, now I'm catching a little bit of rain right now, and we'll see how it handles, I guess, that, but it ain't too bad. Nothing major happening right now. We don't have that heavy of rain or anything. But fun to test it in all conditions, in my opinion. At any rate, keep that shiny side up, folks, and we'll catch you on that next ride.